In this video, I'm going to talk a little bit about timing your feed during a keep, and little about rest days, and for some people that had to change their feed over uh, during the end of the keep, at the end of the keep. So I mentioned this, and it's been talked about, and other people have mentioned it. Uh, when do you feed your dogs? And I always say it's 24 hours out, right? Some people up to 30 hours out. I even knew one guy, he did 36 hours out. And what that means is uh, basically for the show part, that's how many hours out their last feeding is before a show, before an event, before a competition, before illegal sports. If people follow that method of conditioning for the legal sports, or even hunting for that matter. Uh, and like I said, for me it was 24 hours out. For some people it's 30, some people it's longer. First thing I like to bring up is I like my dogs hungry before an event. And that comes from predators in the wild. They hunt better, they're sharper, more focused, more peaked when they're hungry. That's generally when they catch the prey, because uh, if they don't catch the prey during that peak of their hunger, they don't survive. So myself and other people before me, for sure, and other people during my time, use that as a sort of a measure of how you want to bring your dogs in, hungry, like that. And the other thing is, some people feed 12 hours, every 12 hours, twice a day. Some people feed once a day. Most people feed once a day, but some people do feed twice a day. So with that, you want your dogs empty, and going. If you look stuff up, most information you get will tell you that dogs shouldn't be fed that far apart, shouldn't be fed once a day, shouldn't go long periods of time without food. Now, maybe for regular dogs or your pets or whatever, that's true. But for athletes, that's not true. Even professional sports athletes, I'm not saying they go a whole day without food, but it's hours before their competition when they eat. You're not going to eat, no one is, an hour before you have a competition, then go out and compete at the top level. You're not going to have a heavy meal. They may take something, they may take some fluids, a slurry, small, something that digests fast, then have a big old healthy meal. But with pit dogs and probably game fowl too, you want them empty. So going 24 hours or even 48 hours without food is not going to hurt them. It's not going to kill them. It's not going to make them weak. The reason I say this, because in schooling I've done that. Gone up to 2 days without food just to see if there was an adverse effect on my dogs. Now 3 days, for me, that's too long. 3 days is too long. It's too long for humans. It's too long for domestic animals, because again, predators in the wild like lions and probably tigers, I know wolves go several days sometimes without food. That's why when they catch something, they gorge, because they don't know when they're going to eat again. But for the most part, those predators, they don't eat on a daily basis. Probably some do, depending on where they live, the area they live, and the game that's available. But it's been standard knowledge that wolves and lions don't eat full meals every day. And like I said, sometimes they go several days without eating. So when I'll just give my example. When I'm going through my keep, everything was timed, and meaning that if the show I was in was at 6 o'clock in the evening, that's when I'm going to begin my workout. If it's 6 o'clock in the morning, that's when I'm going to begin my workout. Which meant that 15 minutes prior to that, I'm going to take my dog out for his last walk, empty out, warm up, stretch out. He's good to go. But if you think about it, and this has come up, someone asked me, and this is true with everyone. If you think about it, when you're in keep, when you're going through the keep, especially during the heavier workouts later on in the keep and during the peak workout times during the keep, you're not feeding 24 hours out. If you do the math, it's almost impossible to do it if you're timing it to the time of the show. Now, most information that you'll get will say that a dog digests his food anywhere from 8 to 12 hours. The food is digested. With raw feed or cooked food, because it's fresher, because it's not kibble, you would be on the shorter time. They would digest it sooner. That just makes sense. With kibble, because it's hard, it's going to be digested later. But to offset that's one of the reasons I put fluids in my food, because I use kibble and I let it set long enough where it absorbed that water and the kibble was soft, which helped the dog to digest it faster. So if we use that as a measure, let's say it's 12 hours when your dog's fully digested, and the dog just on a daily basis, let's say he empties out, defecates twice a day. When you put him in keep, if you time everything to that starting time of 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 5:45 when you go to empty them out, they're going to train their body and their mind to be ready and basically hold it until that time, because they know you're going to walk them out to empty them out. But when you get to those later weeks into the keep, you're not feeding 24 hours out. There's no way you can do it. So even if you start your workout at 6 o'clock and you only work your dog at his peak for an hour, so you're done by 7, you're going to bring him back, you're going to cool him down, you're going to do your rub down if you do a rub down, and then you're going to feed your dog. That could be 7:30, 8 o'clock. If your peak workout, like mine, and this is including walking them out to empty, doing the workout, walking them out to cool them down, and the rub down, putting them up, then feeding them, at the peak was 3 hours. But it wasn't a 3-hour workout. But that's the total time. That's how I judged it, the total time. So if I start at 6 o'clock during the peak workouts, 3 hours, that's 9 o'clock at night by the time I'm done and the dog is fed. So during that time, he's not getting fed till 9 o'clock at night, which means the next day, when I do the workout again, his last feed, it wasn't 24 hours out. It was, what is that, 12, 15 hours, something like that. Do the math. Anyways, it's not 24 hours out. 24 hours would be 6 p.m. So, and even as you're going through the keep from the beginning to the end, the time on that feed schedule changes. It fluctuates. Because, again, as you increase the time, You know, he's going to be eating at 7 o'clock. He's going to be, or 7:30, whatever it is, if you just start slowly, 15, 20 minutes workout in the beginning. So he may be eating at 6:30, 6:45, 7 o'clock. Then later on it's 7:30, then 8 o'clock, then 8:30, 9 o'clock, like that. And it fluctuates. And I think this is where some people kind of get it mistaken, and they kind of get it. Their dog goes off their feed a little bit because they're not uh, they're not introducing the dog to, at a certain time, I'm going to go to the bathroom. And they could go to the bathroom during the day. They're going to come out in the morning and take a piss. They may even take a dump, right? But when you put them on a schedule like that, 5:45 or 6 o'clock, over a period of several days, going into a couple of weeks and several weeks, they're going to empty out on time. And they'll hold it, right? They may go to the bathroom during the day, like I said, but they're going to hold that main empty until they're taken out to be walked out before their workout. It's a clock that's in their head that they're not cognizant of, but it's a routine that they've been introduced to and they become accustomed to, and they get into, to where it's on time, on time, on time. So, like I said, as that work fluctuates during the keep, their food is going to fluctuate as far as digestion is concerned. But because they're on that timing schedule, they're going to empty out on time. Now, where the 24 hours comes out, where you want them totally empty that way, is during the peak week, or whenever it is you back off the work. Because as you back off the work, now the time between your last feeding and when he empties out the next day, it starts getting closer to that 24 hours. And the last several days or few days, it's right on 24 hours. Because for me, all I'm doing the last 2 or 3 days is walking them out to empty. And if they've emptied on their chain or their kennel or wherever you have them put up, if they're inside, that's a little bit different. But if I had them in a kennel or on a chain spot, I may not have to walk them out. They're empty. And they take total what's the word I'm looking for? They take total advantage of that rest. But if they haven't, all I'm going to do the last 2 or 3 days is walk them out, and they're going to empty right away within a few minutes because they've been timed to do that. So I'm going to take them to their spot, which was right in front of my house. And they're going to go. Then I'm going to put them up. And they're going to be peaking during that time too, so they're going to be kind of buck wild sometimes. And they're going to be unsettled. And they're going to piss a lot because they're coming to peak, so they're going to get all them fluids out. So as you come down to the final week, as I came down to the final week, now I'm keying in on that 24 hours, 24 hours, 24 hours. And like I said, the last 2 or 3 days, it is 24 hours. The method seemed to work. And if you do a little bit of math, because people go, hey, you say 24 hours, but I'm working my dog, it's not 24 hours. And I tell them, that's right, it's not. It's not, it can't be. Some people work them a lot longer than 3 hours a day. Danny Burton said he worked his dogs 8 hours a day. If that's true, he's not feeding 24 hours out, unless he did the workout during the day and, he fed 24 hours and they didn't have any work into that time. I didn't bother to ask him, but that's a good point that I'm making now, so maybe I'll ask him next time how he did that for so many hours working a dog a day. How did he get the feed dialed in? But anyways, that's the way I got my feed dialed in. So it fluctuates in the beginning and the middle and towards the end of the keep, and I get them on time the last week of the keep. Now I've also mentioned that I didn't like to rest my dog 3 days in a row. That was just me, right? But during the end of the keep, on some of my keeps, they did rest 3 days. So how does that work out? Again, when I speak of not resting them 3 days in a row, that means that I didn't do anything with them. So they don't even get out to walk around. When I rested the dog that 1 day a week or sometimes 2 days a week, I did nothing. They rested that whole 24-hour period into the next day. That's it. No walkout, no nothing. They empty on time in their chain spot, and I didn't do anything on it. I wanted, when I say rest, I mean total rest. No disturbance, nobody messing with them, nobody touching them, no taking them out, nothing. Now again, if you have your dog inside your house, you're going to have to take him out twice a day or 3 times a day or more. There's people that do it that way too, but I didn't. For the most part, my dogs were in a separate spot away from the other dogs, no distractions, no nothing. They were secluded. And the only one they saw during the keep for most of it was me. So they were totally dependent on me. They relied on me for everything. And that's part of where that bond was built with me. So at the end of the keep, how am I doing it if I'm giving them 3 days off? Well, it's because that 3 days off involved at least me walking them out. So let's say I rested them Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. On Wednesday, I'm at least going to walk them out a half a mile. Sometimes a little longer. But not that far. Half a mile is nothing. For me, it was because I lived in a rural area, agriculture. The way the acres are set up, the way the agriculture is set up is in 1/8 mile, 1/4 mile, 1/2 mile increments. So most of the orchards, they're 1/4 mile long or 1/4 mile square. Or 1/4 mile if it's a lot more acreage. What they do is they just split it up in 1/4 mile increments, which means you would go a 1/4 mile, there will be a road splitting it, dirt road or a trail splitting it. Then you have another section, this and that. It's just the way they go about counting acres and using that measurement to their advantage. So for me, 1/4 mile was from my house to the stop sign. There was an orchard in front of my house, and the orchard next to my house was 1/4 mile square, which means if I went around that acreage next to my house, I walked a mile. So once I walked down to the stop sign, if the dog hadn't emptied out, I could either come back and he would empty out on the way back, or I could go the whole mile if I wanted to, if I felt they needed it, right? And walking a half a mile only takes a few minutes. It's nothing. It's just enough for them to empty out, warm up, stretch out. So that's how I got away, per se, from giving them that 3 days rest. I didn't do it every time. Sometimes it was just Thursday or Friday rest, because what I did at the last week of the keep is I cut the work in half. So for example, let's say their hardest workout was the Saturday before. Let's say I did 8 miles. So on Saturday I'm doing 8 miles, Sunday I'm doing 4 miles, Monday I'm doing 2 miles, Tuesday I'm doing 1 mile. These are workouts. So it's running or pulling, whatever. So Monday I'm doing, or let's see, Saturday 8 miles, Sunday 4 miles, Monday 2 miles, Tuesday 1 mile. Wednesday I'm either going to repeat the 1 mile workout or I'm going to rest them that day. But whichever, it just depends on the dog, what I felt he needed. But doing it that way, they're still getting out and doing something. It's not a total rest day like the other ones. So that's why that if I did it 3 days in a row and did a show on Saturday, they weren't sore or lame or flat or anything like that. They still got some type of movement at the time that they're scheduled to do the show, to compete. So that's kind of a little bit on how you feed, and the understanding of when people say I feed 24 hours out, that's where they're getting adjusted to it towards the end of the keep, because during the keep you're not going to do that unless somebody has a method of doing that I'm not familiar with. If somebody out there has one, feel free to put it in there, how you do 24 hours out every day, including your peak workout days. Feel free to put it in there, but that's how I did it, and you adjust it towards the end of the keep. Now some people, because of their work or whatever back then, they have regular jobs. They work during the day, but their show is during the day, either in the morning. If you're on a big show, it could be up to noon, afternoon, wherever. I did a couple of shows in the morning, but because of my lifestyle, I could work them in the morning. So if the show was in the morning, my keep, I did it in the morning. Workout, feed, all that, same thing in the morning. Some people, because like I said, they worked, and because of their schedule, some have split, work schedules. They have to work their dog in the evening when they get home from work. But since the show is during the day, in the morning or next day, whatever time it is, they have to switch all that over. And what I noticed they did was they switched it just almost at the last minute, say the last 3 or 4 days at the end of the keep before the show. So again, if their show is on Saturday and they've been working their dogs in the evenings, it's on Saturday morning, they've been working their dogs in the evening, somewhere around Wednesday, Tuesday, or Wednesday, they're switching the dog's feed over to feeding them in the morning, where previously they had been feeding them at night. Now some may have done the twice a day feeding, but the ones I knew fed once a day, and they fed at night after the workout like you would normally do. And then that peak week, that last week, they switched the feed over to the morning. Now it would be ideal, and some of them probably could, where like me, they would work their dog in the morning. But I know more than one or two that didn't. They had to switch their feed over. So Tuesday or Wednesday, that's all they did. Switch their feed over to the morning. And because that last week is rest, they have those 2 or 3 or 4 days for their dog to get accustomed to that 24 hours out feed. And if you know what you're doing, which they did most of the time, got it right on point. The switching over wasn't a problem. The dog adjusted. Come showtime, they get there, and I'm talking about they're traveling long distance. They get there, like I mentioned before, 30 hours out, 24 hours out. They feed their dog. Boom, do the show the next day. So that's a little bit on. I just wanted to clear it up because I've been asked, it doesn't make sense, schoolboy. How are you doing 24 hours out when you're doing the keep and this and that? So that's basically how I did it, and that's what people mean generally when they say I feed 24 hours out. So hope you enjoy it.